Good afternoon, everyone. It's time to start. I see it's already 3 o'clock. Good afternoon and welcome to our EuroCham webinar. My name is Delphine Rousselet. I'm the Executive Director of EuroCham Vietnam. On behalf of EuroCham, I would like to thank you all for your interest in our webinar today. I see we have already more than 100 guests connected and counting, coming and coming. We have almost 200 people registered for today's event. Let me start by thanking, of course, VIVA Business Consulting for their support and co-organization for this very, very interesting event. The current political and economic context in Vietnam is for sure not easy in this last month, but foreign investors can grab more business opportunities in the Vietnamese market. In this webinar, VIVA Business Consulting experts will share their practical insights about the Vietnamese Economy Overview, the opportunities and challenges for foreign direct invested companies when investing in Vietnam, and especially shortcutting entry procedures, avoiding and preventing most of legal risks, creating business advantages, and keeping good standing in Vietnam. While our guests will do their presentation, you can, of course, in the audience, address your questions at any time using the chat box. At the bottom of your screen, you can see the chat button. Please click on the chat and write your questions. I will try to gather all your questions and address them to our speakers at the end of the webinar during the Q&A session. Please make sure to unmute all the microphones, as most of us are still working at home. Maybe we want to avoid cats, kids, dogs, etc. So please just pay attention to your microphone. Please allow me to introduce our three speakers today. Mr. Nam Hai Dinh, Director of VIVA Business Consulting. Mr. Tim, Business Development Manager at VIVA Business Consulting. And Mr. Paul, Legal Specialist at VIVA Business Consulting. Please join me to welcome our speakers. Mr. Tim, I think you are the first one to speak today. The floor is yours.
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Delphine, for your kind introduction. So first of all, I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time to join our webinar today. I think it's very, it's very privileged that EuroCham is giving us the opportunity to, showcase some of our information and, give some guidance for investors. During this COVID pandemic, and showing some interest to Vietnam market during this time. So I'd like to introduce again on our speakers today. So in the middle is Mr. Hai, is the CEO of VIVA Business Consulting, and next to me is Mr. Paul. He's the legal specialist at VIVA Business Consulting, and I'm Tim, the business development manager. Please give us a second. We're going to share the slide right now.
We don't see them yet.
Please give us a second.
Yes, now it's about to. Yep. Maybe you can put it in the full screen mode. Yes. Fantastic.
Yes, great. Amazing.
Perfect.
All right, thank you. So our webinar today is comprised of 7 parts. So I'm going to go through market entry and required compliance procedure and other investment visa and export issue in Vietnam. After we're going to hand over the floor to Mr. Hai to talk more about restructuring, how to sell a company in Vietnam, and how to close our company. And then finally, Mr. Paul going to give you some regulation and law updates regarding investment law or enterprise law. And finally, we're going to briefly introduce you a little bit about our company, what we do, and who we are. So for today, market entry procedure, we have assumed that many foreign investors that already have conducted the market research, and we want to emphasize on the implementation stage, where how to establish a foreign company in Vietnam. And these steps are including 5 crucial steps. So first step is how to choose a right form for your company in Vietnam, and what are the tax and incentive for that type of company, and what are required papers to apply to establish that company, and what's the actual company registration procedure, and finally the post initial compliance procedures. So for form of a business in Vietnam, we have narrowed down 3 common form or type that we think that a lot of most common type of a company that foreign investor want to look at. So first one is limited liability company, or known as LLC. So LLC can be a one-member company, or can be single, multiple members. And then looking at other type is the joint stock company. The joint stock company compared to limited liability company. Joint stock company is tend to for a company want to go public, want to issue stock, compared to an LLC company. And finally, we look at the incorporated partnership. Incorporated partnership essentially is many entities or individual in partnershiping to open up a company. However, the incorporated partnership company can be different, can be partners versus the contributed invested partners in the company. So other forms that we're going to look at of the business we're going to look at are the foreign representative office. So representative office are the common type that foreign companies want to enter Vietnam to promote the product or service prior establishing its presence or having any profit activity in Vietnam. And second type is the foreign branch office. Foreign branch office is similar to representative office, but they can conduct the profit activity. Both foreign representative office and foreign branch office are operating under a parent company in a foreign country. To other type, including business cooperation contract between an entity in a foreign country and a local partner in Vietnam. And fourth one is representative office. Representative office can be a local company representative office in this case. So here are some legal documents that every foreign companies have to apply for in order to establish a company in Vietnam. So first, very important document is the investment registration certificate, or known as IRC. So every foreign company come Vietnam that directly invest in Vietnam have to apply for IRC. And then we move on to apply for ERC, or also known as the Enterprise Registration Certificate, where it's allow you to your company to operate in Vietnam legally accordingly with the Vietnamese law. And then afterward, we can apply for business license or sub license for in this instance, if you're doing trading activity, you have to apply for trading license. And if you want to do the e-commerce services, you have to apply for e-commerce license. And finally, we also have other sub-licenses depending on each industry that you're into. For example, if you're opening in F&B or restaurant, you might want to apply for a sub-license, including food and safety or any fire prevention. So those kind of sub-license depending on your actual industry are you in. And after you applying for a company, there's some taxes that for certain industry in Vietnam can be looking at. So some of the industry in Vietnam does have tax incentives and the tax rate depending on what industry or what size of company in Vietnam. And here we presented the common type of taxes. So in the next slides we will look at the rates of each tax that we're going to look at. So the first tax, we usually corporate look at the CIT, or known as the corporate income tax, where the average rate is around 30%. In some cases, there's going to be exemption or any reduction of the taxes depending on the actual business. And other taxes, including VAT and PIT, personal income tax, and other tax related to employment, that including compulsory insurance or other relevant taxes. So other taxes I want to talk more about, or the business license tax, is the annual fee for your maintaining your business license. So the tax rate is going to be vary from the invested capital in the company. So in this case, if you invest 2 billion, the annual business license tax will be 1 million, and with the maximum it can go up to 3 million if your invested capital or charter capital is from 10 billion Vietnam dollar or above. So after you have settled what type of form and what the tax incentives and what procedure, we're looking at the actual legal requirements to be submitted to the local authorities to proceed with the actual procedure. So for individuals, you have to prepare the list of relevant personal IDs or passports, and then we're looking at the bank certificate. So in this case, bank balance certificate. So in this case, is if you intended to invest 500 million Vietnam dong in the company, you should show that you have at least 500 million Vietnam dong in your bank balance. So moving on, another very essential part is a lawful leasing contract, meaning you have a proper legitimate head office address. In certain industry, some area is not allowed to perform each certain type of business. So you have to be aware that when you're leasing a certain, land or property, you have to be, assured that the landlord have the rights to, give you the rights to conduct your business on that site. So when you're opening business, you have to also choose a list of, business line that you want to operate in. So those business segments also are usually some of them are conditional for foreigners. And then number 6, we're looking at some of the documents. When you open a company, you have like a board of directors, that professionals that want to manage that company. You also have to provide the relevant documents to the local authorities. And then finally, you were looking at opening other post-initial establishment. You have to investment capital, and then a percentage of the members, and then moving on at the actual establishment process. So, for at VIVA, we have some in our experience. I think it's very useful tips that you follow the structure with the with the roadmap, how to plan ahead, with the roadmap, and to before actually applying and submitting documents to proceed with the establishment. So first, as we just went through the choosing the right form for your company, and also what's the business line and what's the incentive to business line in that industry. and what's the right headquarter address, and then write a rental agreement, and preparing all the legal required papers, and then moving on the actual establishment. So each of the industry or establishment cases may be different. So some of the industry or certain business line may take longer. Some, especially looking at foreign investor coming here in this case, some of the business line are conditional. They should, have some prior step, proactively plan ahead. First is to, for example, you can establish first and then apply for sub-license later. So for the actual, company registration procedure, we have divided into three main stages. So first one is you will apply for IRC or investment registration certificate at the DPI or Department of Planning and Investment. And after that, you apply for ESC at the DPI, the Department of Planning and Investment. So usually you will have the processing time for ESC is usually 30 working days, and your company can start operating once the ESC is issued. So you have a tax code when you have an ESC, and you will start operating your company from that the issuing stage. And then thirdly, you can start after you get the IRC and ESC, you can start apply for sub-license, like which industry are you in. So in this case, it can be e-commerce or any other relevant license at the Department of Industry and Trade. So once you have established a company, there's some compliance, like initial compliance procedure you have to follow. So those compliance, usually it's not going through with other agencies. So first one, we're looking at taxation. You should reduce the tax, initial tax registration to issue the procedure for VAT invoice. And if you do trading or any trading activities like import or export, you should conduct procedure for customs registration. And also you have to register for electronic invoice, electronic signature token, in this case token. So in this case, you can issue invoice to your vendor or to your partners once you request it. So also once you establish company, the PI also they announce the establishment of your company in Vietnam. So and then final step including covering a company seal. So company seal in Vietnam is basically a legal stamp that certified all the documents that your company issued to public or to any of your partner. And then finally, you're looking at your capital contribution. So you should open a capital bank account. You should open a payment bank account, and within 90 days from the issuing dates of your AC, you should transfer the capital to the capital account of your company. So once you establish a company, we move on the compliance procedure in Vietnam. And compliance procedure in Vietnam is, I think, very crucial, especially some companies and market entry is one thing, but like market exiting market is also a very essential thing. So when your company complies with all regulations at the time of dissolution or closing down a company, if you have all the right documents at the place, I think it's going to help or benefit a lot to your company with the processing time and closing costs. So we see there's a lot of company when it closed down, they couldn't fulfill that obligation. So therefore, the cost of closing down the company is quite high. So in this case, we have divided into 5 additional steps. So first one is managing the business record for business, and then employment relation, and tax and auditing, and other business contract and daily transactions. So at VIVA we have a term of BAM, or known as the Business Records Management. So it's consolidated regulation from accounting code, accounting law, labor law, enterprise law that businesses and companies in Vietnam should store and keep the invoice or documents in place at their company and be prepared at any time for inspection. So this is the very first step of compliance procedure once you establish a company, and want to give you why it's important and why you should do it. So first of all, it's a compliance procedure. It's a must. And then secondly, is something that documents that support to prepare all of your compliance reports like financial statement or any quarterly or yearly reports that to be submitted to tax department or any other relevant authorities. So with those old documents, once you store it at a place, you also can hand over to new staff with the already existing storage system, and you also be prepared at any tax inspection in future. So what is business record management? So at VIVA we have designed it like a set of structural folders that's for companies in Vietnam to store their invoice or documents in that hard folders, as well as online or soft files or on their server or on their storage. And those mission has to be accomplished by daily or weekly or quarterly or yearly revision, and putting all your relevant invoice in the same place at the given time. And when at the time you want to review or any activity or any transaction at your company, you have the ready storage system and the invoices in place. Hence, we can proceed more efficiently. Once you have established a storage system in your company, we look at the employment relation. So in this case, if a foreign company, you're looking at the foreign employees and local employees. So it's very important for a new company how to draft clear and concrete labor contract that have a middle line between the employer and the employee, and how to draft it accordingly with the Vietnamese law, with the fair and equal rights with both parties, and in the future how to liquidate those contracts without any disputes. That's very very important. So with that, you should keep in mind that how to comply with the law at the same time, and how to mitigate the risk between the employer and employee in the future. And the second issue of the employment relation is the relation between employer and employee with the labor agencies and insurances. So in Vietnam, there's some certain compulsory insurances and tax, so some of, especially in this case, if a foreign employee, they have some obligation to follow the local regulation to declare and settle all the employee-related issue before exiting or any liquidating and taking their earning income to another country. And finally, we're looking at the personal income tax. Personal income tax so it's in Vietnam, as the income tax are aggregated, and vary depending on the income of each employee. And with that personally, if you know the structure of income tax, you know how to optimize it for each employee and to mitigate or control any risk in that tax, and basically controlling tax expenses for your company. So for foreign company, very essential, compliance procedure is to do annual audit. So this according to the Article 15, Decree 17 on 12. So these are all the parties that are required to do the annual independent audit. So in this case, the first subject is foreign investment companies, and then any credit institution, banks, or public companies that they require to showcase transparent numbers or financial statement or the revenue expenses. They have to do the independent annual audit. So why do we have to do independent audit? So first of all, it's a compliance procedure. It's for every foreign businesses, and also is risk identifying tool that the keyword here is independent. So this independent party coming in to review all your numbers and data that the valid is correct, and that reflect to your real business activity to prevent any other losses or any hidden risks that you may not aware of. So this is one of other benefits that why you should do the annual independent audit. Other required compliance is business contracts. So once you have business, you establish a company with them, you will have a lot of vendors or contracts, and especially in this globalization, you will have a lot of partners from other countries. You have a local partners, and it's very important to understand the legal law and understand the legal playground. What's the regulation and how to protect yourself and what your right is. So I think it's in this case we recommend to prepare and manage a business contract and transaction accordingly. If any dispute, especially during this time, we see a lot of dispute without any proper contracts and any proper transaction evidence that may lead to future unwanted ramifications. So that's very important. So first we usually with our step we usually go with KYC or know your customer or due diligence. And once you know them, you can start preparing, drafting a business contract. And once we have a contract, we have to manage those contracts that both parties fulfill all those terms and conditions that written and agreed in the contract. So once you establish a company as a foreign company, foreign experts have to come to Vietnam. So I think it's very important to understand what's the benefit for foreign investor coming in Vietnam, and what the visa options and what the long-term and short-term visa options is. So for investment visa for investor in Vietnam, so from July 2020, the government has amended the law that there are 4 main types of investment visa with validity from 1 to 10 years. So those investment visa type including 4 tiers, right? DT4, and we start DT1, DT2, DT3, DT4. So DT1 is with the highest validity with 10 years, and those 10 years DT1 visa can be issued when a foreign investor solely invests in a foreign country with 100 billion Vietnam dong. And second one is DT2 is when a foreign investor invests from 50 billion to 100 billion Vietnam dong in a company, and then they have a validity of up to 5 years. And then next move to DT3 with the maximum validity to 3 years, with the investor capital from 3 billion to 50 billion Vietnam dong. And then finally we have the bottom tier is the DT4, where the investor invests into a company with less than 3 billion Vietnam dong, and you will have from less than 12 month validity of the investment visa. So once you come in, one option is you come in Vietnam as investor, investing visa. Other option as a foreign expert or foreign employee. And the Vietnamese government recognized foreign employee here in this situation, including when they're executing a labor contract, or they're working in position as a manager, director, or CEOs, or expert, or technical workers, or other cases including internal assignment. Internal assignments is the case where a parent company in a foreign country that have a subsidiary company in Vietnam, and that a foreign company has worked in a parent company has more than 12 years, they can reassign that foreign employee to a subsidiary in Vietnam. And other, situation including enforcing contract or agreements, or working for non-government or international organization in Vietnam. So in this slide, we want to show you the full, compliant procedure for expat in Vietnam. I think it's very important, understand the structure and the roadmap before, entering Vietnam for every foreigner. So before you enter Vietnam, you should have a valid entry visa for export or investors. And if you wish to work in Vietnam and you want a long-term visa, you can apply for work permit, and then after you can apply for a TRC or temporary residence card. And other, other aspect you're also looking at, compliant aspect, looking at PIT, other compulsory insurance. As Vietnam right now it's an open economy, so foreigners can come in and invest into many fields of investment field in Vietnam. For instance, you can invest in real estate or any other properties in Vietnam now. So I think it's very important to know what's the investment option for foreigners in Vietnam. So next, I would like to hand over to Mr. Hai to briefly talk to you about the company restructuring, how to sell and acquire a company in Vietnam.
Yes, thank you, Tim. So after the entry market procedure, now you know how to run the business in Vietnam in the lawful manner, so that you can avoid most of the risky thing in advance. Keep your good standing during the business in Vietnam. Besides the required compliance procedure, you may have more management activity, especially in restructuring of your company in Vietnam, and you even need to close your company in Vietnam to withdraw on the capital and profit to your home country. So before talking about the closing the company in Vietnam, we would like to share to you about the restructuring your company. It means how to manage the company in Vietnam. So there are three common activities of business restructuring in Vietnam. Number one is the acquiring and selling the company. Number two, transferring the share or the capital to the new members, to the new investor. And number three is to transformation of the form of business. So for acquiring the company in Vietnam or selling the company in Vietnam, there are three key procedures that you shall keep in mind. Number one, you should do the due diligence on the company. Number two, you should manage the memorandum of understanding and prepare the purchasing contract, the transferring contract. Number three, you should manage the transferring procedure for transferring the company. And to manage the transformation of forms of business in Vietnam, usually you will transform the forms of business from the representative office to a subsidiary. Or you can transform the forms of business from one member limited liability company to more members limited liability company, or transform to the joint stock company. So each form of business may have advantage and disadvantage. So you should understand very clearly about the advantage and disadvantage of each form of business before you make the transformation. And regarding to transferring the portion of capital or transfer the shares to the new member. You can transfer the share or the personal capital to the new member or transfer between the members in the company. The transferring may be happen between the individual to individual investor, or between the entity to business entities, or between the individual to the business entities, it depending on case. However, in any case, you should be prepare and declare for the tax on the investment capital. In Vietnam, the tax on investment capital is 20% on the profit. So after manage the required compliance procedure and manage the restructuring of your company in Vietnam, you may consider to close the company in Vietnam. There's many cases to many reasons to close a company in Vietnam. Maybe because you want to move to a new industry, or you want to close the company and withdraw on the investment and profits to your home country, or you just want to avoid some potential risk in advance. So once you want to close the company in Vietnam, you should keep in mind a procedure with 3 important steps. So step number 1 for closing the company in Vietnam, you should have the official decision on dissolution of your company and do the registration with the local competence agency. This is very important step. This step is allow you to terminate the business and put your company into a standby status. It means no more business obligation arise from the day of registration of dissolution. And the second step, you should clear on the debt and obligation until you obtain the completion of certificate of debt to your employee, to the suppliers, with the local competence agency, especially with the tax department and the labor department. And the third step, according to the result in the first step and the second step, you will submit on the document to the licensing department and obtain the letter of confirmation on the dissolution. Whenever you obtain the letter of confirmation on dissolution, you are allowed to close the bank account and transfer on the balance of money to your home country before you return the legal stamp at the completion of dissolution procedure. So after the market entry and after the required compliance procedure in Vietnam, and how you know how to manage the required procedure for expat in Vietnam, and we also share to you the common activity on restructure a company in Vietnam and the procedure to close a company in Vietnam. So we would like to introduce Ms. Paul. Paul will share to you the new laws and regulations in relation to the business compliance in Vietnam, especially the new laws on investment and new laws on labor and immigration.
Thank you, Mr. Hai. Thank you, Mr. Jim. So, as we may know that Vietnam is known as a country, is a really attractive land for investor in Vietnam, not only because we have a political stability of a political system, the geography, the special geography positions, but also recent years we have shown many international treaties, international agreement, bilateral and multilateral agreement with a lot of countries, and this is the pressure for us to reform our legal system and try to cope with the international manners. Surrounding the foreign investment activities in Vietnam, we have set up with so many legal set of laws concerning the investment activities for the foreign investors. And the first of all is the investment laws. The second, enterprise law, when you're establishing a new company in Vietnam and another subsidiary later on. And when you have the company, you have the labor, so the labor code will regulate the employment relation between you and the employees. And the tax management law, and we regulate about your tax obligation and the obligation authority to guide you how to pay tax yearly and annually. And the commercial law will regulate the trading activities that happen in the common practices in the daily operation business. And the intellectual property laws is the milestone, is another key that Vietnam government tried to commit with many international organizations in protecting the intellectual properties of foreign investors that invest into Vietnam. And finally, the immigration law. The investment law and immigration law is the two key law that most influence and relate to the foreign investors. So in the next slide, let me introduce you some key principles for the foreign investors and introduce you some of the law that I mentioned above. Who is the question we raise here is that who is the foreign investor? We usually know that, of course, the foreign investor is the foreign nationals living outside Vietnam or any organizations established in the overseas country. But the question here is the concern here is that if they invest to establish a new company in Vietnam, and this company is establish a new subsidiaries, any other children company or brothers companies. So what is the legal status of the subsidiaries and the parent companies or the children company in Vietnam? Because we need to understand that the legal status of an investor, foreign investor and domestic investor is quite different about their right and obligations when doing the business here. So we need to identify it in principle to know exactly what is the right and obligation between the foreign investor and domestic investors. So there are three scenarios that you can identify and identify who is the foreign investor or the foreign investors. The first of all, the first scenario is that if the economic organizations we can simply say that it's the companies who is this is owned by more than 50% of the foreign investors. So this companies will be considered as a deemed foreign investor. When you are considered a deemed foreign investor, so the compliance procedure will be applied to you as a foreign investor, and which will be different from the domestic investor. So if this company continue to establish new companies or conduct a new M&A process with another company in Vietnam or incorporated in Vietnam. So if the children companies have more than 50% of the companies that established above, so this children company will be also a foreign investor. So let me give you examples. So in the map we can see that the company A invested more than 50% into a company C at the F1 level. The company A here is incorporated overseas countries, and the company C is incorporated in Vietnam. So the company A owns more than 50% of the company C. So the company C here will be considered as the deemed foreign investor, which the compliance procedures we apply to foreign investor, not a domestic investor. But besides besides domestic investor, we just have the capital contribution equal or less than 50% of the foreign investor. So in this case, that company will be treated as a domestic investor with more visible compliance procedure than the foreign investors. So if the company C establish a new company at the F2 levels, we call at the company F. The company F here is also be deemed as foreign investors because it's on more than 50% from the company C. So we understand that the company F is a foreign invested enterprise, foreign direct investment company, but it also as a foreign investor when it's doing business in Vietnam. So and the third scenario is when the company C and comply with doing a joint venture business with the foreign investor in company B at FO level. So the the foreign investor, the company C with the company B, who are owning more than 50% of the company D. Company D here. So in this case, the company D in the map will be considered as a foreign investor when doing business in Vietnam. So please we know that it is the key principle because really important because it might influence on the way you doing the licensing procedures with the competent authority, but some business will have some restriction specific condition up on towards the foreign investor, which is kind of different from the domestic investor and local enterprises.
Yes, so to identify who are the foreigner investor in Vietnam is very important because it relates to the business rights and obligation, and especially for the entry market procedure. Because when you are a foreigner investor, the investment procedure is very different with the local investor.
And we have seen 2021 the new enforcement of the new law on investment of Vietnam. We have a different approach to the market entry condition that apply to the foreign investor, which is different from the law on investment 2014, which are out of effective recently. The new approaching is say that the market access conditions applied to foreign investor are the same as those applied to the domestic investor, except for the case specified in the list of business line prohibited or restricted to foreign investor. This is a new approaching of the Vietnamese government. In the past, when we allow the new investor to access to the Vietnam market, we just try to commit on the specified commitment of the Vietnam government to the WTO or any other type of agreement, and any other specific business like that not specified in our commitment. We will try to seek the competent authority the opinion before grant the license to be invested to allow your investment to Vietnam. But at the new law and the new regulations in 2021, we apply the key important principle is called national equipment. We try to reduce any period between the foreign investor and domestic and local investors. By that, the domestic investor, except for any business line that prohibited or not allowed to do Vietnam, or any type of business that enter with some conditions and specific restrictions, and any other. That's no. For example, we have no commitment or no domestic restriction. The foreign investor will be treated the same as the domestic investor.
So according to the new laws of investment in 2020, so it's more open for the foreigner investor for the entry margin, entry policy.
But more importantly is the key that the Vietnamese government strongly try to the one principle to protect our countries, because some business like can affect on our national securities, and also national defense or the public others. So with some, I can say that sensitive business like Vietnam's government will be restricted.
Of course, we only limit in any industry which relates or may impact to the security or environment.
Yes.
Paul, can I interrupt just a second? Can we go back to the previous slide, please? Previous one, another one. Yes, because there was a question. Yes, exactly. There was a question in the chat box. So maybe we take it now because after it will be difficult to come back to the slides. The question was, can you make clear the percentage is voting right or ownership?
The ratio of percentage here is the percentage of ownership of the capital ownership in the country. Yeah.
In the company.
Yes, the voting rights will depending on the owners of the portion of capital. So each shareholder, each member will have his rights according to his portion of capital.
Okay, I think the reply is clear. Thank you. Sorry for interrupting.
So I would like to introduce a little bit more about law on investment and the Decree 31, which has come into effect in 2021. The law on investment, let me say that this is regulating most of investment activities in Vietnam, and they also form some formalities of investment. We often have 4 types of investment in Vietnam. The first one is the type of you establishing new companies in Vietnam. The second one is you make an M&A. You buy a company in Vietnam which is acquiring a company which has been existed in the company market. The third one is you and your partner doing a investment project, for example, like a construction project in Vietnam.
Yes.
And the fourth one is you doing the business cooperation contracts. You and the companies in Vietnam, or you and your partner in overseas can do any business in Vietnam with.
So there will be 4 forms of investment in Vietnam. 4 common form, typical form of investment.
And some special case will be decided by the Vietnam's government,
by the authorities.
Yeah. And the Decree 31 will give you some detailed procedures. What is the dossiers? What is the way you implement your project, and you report it not only to the state authorities. And this Decree 31 also lists out some prohibited business line and restricted business line that I have told you in the previous slide, the key principle of the market entries. So in case you establish a company in Vietnam, the law on enterprise and the Decree 01 is the key milestone. It regulates the corporate governance in general towards some common form of FDI company. And as Mr. Tim has told you about the limited liability companies, joint stock company, or partnership on some relevant dependent unit like rep office, representative office. And the law on enterprise will give you the general right and obligation of the company legal representative, the company's owners, shareholders, and the corporate governance, and the way we try to manage the companies in general, the internal rules of the companies. Normally, the companies can list out and regulate their own rules, but the own rules must be based on the law on enterprise at least.
So the investment laws, it allows the foreigner investor to invest in Vietnam.
Yes, correct.
And the enterprise laws allows a company to operate in Vietnam.
Yes.
So enterprise laws will regulate the daily activity of a company in Vietnam, including the voting right of the shareholders and the company's owners.
Yes. And in 2021, the state agency of Vietnam also promote the way we use the online services. We can register online our companies, or we can make e-payment, electronic payment when during paying fee for the company establishment. This is some new implementation, the way we implementation, and we also try to reduce the time with the spend for business
administration procedure
by improve and implement the interagency coordinations. Yeah. For example, like we just submitted our dossier, and the tax authority and the
now just one stop door.
Yeah, just one stop door. Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, so
okay. In the next slide is about the labor code, which regulate the relations between the employees and employers. Vietnam now has shown the international labor organizations, and we have shown participate in and sign here as a contracting party for 7 conventional treaties concerning the labor, the employees. And in the new implementation of Labor Code 2019, which has come into effect since 2021, is the new reform of the Vietnamese government, which is trying to balance the right the right of the male and of the male laborers and the female laborers.
Yeah.
We try to reduce the discriminations that conformable with the international norms recently, and the foreign workers in the labor when working in Vietnam also need to understand our condition precedent before working here, before being allowed to work in here. So the four condition precedent to work here is, the first one is you need to be 18 years old or more than 18 years old. The second thing is that you have to be a qualified employees, which means that you have qualified experience and qualified good health to allowed to be work here. The second condition precedent is that you have been no criminal records, any pending criminal record in overseas or in Vietnam as well. And the second, the most important thing is you need to be granted a work permit, or you belong to the case of work permit exemptions.
So the labor code in 2019 is inconsistent with the international commitment.
Yes,
and it's more regulation for the foreigner who want to work in Vietnam.
Yes,
including the qualified including the condition in degree, police clearance certificate, work permit. And the one is the new law, for the work permit exemptions. The new labor law regulate has specified the scenario of the investors. Yeah.
So the investors who are the representative of investors, who it represent from 3 billion Vietnam dong or 128,000 US dollars or above, will be exempted from the work permit. This is the really new channel. This is really the new regulation here. And the second news and the second new one is that when the Vietnamese when the foreigners marry Vietnamese persons and residing in Vietnam, there is a three new scenario that Vietnam three of the main new scenario that being exempted from the work permit. And the decree 152 will detail and give you a clear elaborations,
the detailed guidance
for you
for
to
the
apply the work permit, and give you a clear terminologies and explanation who is the expert, who is the managers, who is executive, and who is technical worker, and some conditional qualification for you to apply for the work permit.
So after the labor code 2019, the government issued the decrees 152 to give the detailed guidance for the foreigner who can work in Vietnam. Is that correct?
That's correct. But please note that before using the foreigner in Vietnam, please the state agency require you to apply for the need of using the demand of using the foreign workers for that positions that the company is need, because the Vietnamese government just allow some specific positions. As in the slide, I said that the position in as expert.
You mean before the foreigner, the employer can recruit the foreigner employees, they have to submit and obtain the letter approval for the demand of using foreigner employees. Correct. And this will be detailed guidance in decrees 152.
Yes, correct. And because the impact of COVID, so the Vietnam government has issued the resolutions 1105, which reduce some paperwork for the foreigners. For example, if the foreigner has located and which has been granted the work permit here, but the work permit expired during the time of the period of the impact of COVID-19. So you don't. So when you submit to extend the work permit, you don't need to submit the certificate of experience. Just submit your old work permit to apply the new one.
It means the certificate of experience is one of the legal requirements for a foreigner who work in Vietnam. However, during the COVID situation, during the social distinction from the government, so the requirement on the certificate of experience,
Please note that the validity of the work permit is only for 2 years.
Every 2 years.
And you can be extended
Renew
accordingly and renew accordingly. And about the tax management is the law of tax management 2019 require the state authority to give more specific guidance for you, the taxpayer, when you are doing your financial obligations, which means that they have a duties and obligation to guide you to conduct the tax declarations.
It means the taxpayer have more rights to request the authority to give the spotting.
We can require the tax authority to explain us the way we try to conduct
and
our
give the necessary spotting for the taxpayer.
Yes, correct. And the new tax management law also promote the application to use electronic invoices, electronic vouchers when we finalize our tax obligations. And for some of business that is quite big, as multinational companies, the decree 132 is about affiliate transactions, which have some specific regulations on the transfer pricings. And to cope with the international manners in trying to avoid the unlawful transfer pricings recently, and the way we so the Vietnam government
because we have limit time. So about the tax regulation, you mean that the new tax management in this regulation is the most important, that they give more rights for the taxpayer, that the taxpayer entitled to get to require the tax authority to give more detailed spotting.
Yes.
And also the tax issue the new decree to manage more strictly about the price transferring for the affiliated transaction. It means related transaction. That's correct.
That's correct.
Because we have a limit time, so please focus on the.
So I will move to the next part.
Okay.
Sorry. Too many things to say. It's quite interesting. And the commercial activities in Vietnam, there's no restriction at all, but the Vietnam government require you to commit some list of business line and business product. We had issue out, and you need to comply with the before doing any kind of import or export activities. And the new law on competition 2018 it regulate the way the action of Vietnamese government try to avoid the unfair competition practices in Vietnam and avoid any anti-competitive effect from agreement to constrain the competition of Vietnam's market. This is new law, just the way we try to adopt the international norms and international treaty and agreement that we have signed recent years.
Yes.
The law on intellectual properties is also a way we try to adopt a new under the law from international treaties. We have joined the Berne Conventions, the New York Convention, the Paris Conventions to protect the copyright, the intellectual properties.
For the intellectual property laws, Vietnam have signed a lot of international commitments. Especially they have to follow with the commitment with Europe. So they issue new laws and regulations in 2009.
Yes, fine. And this is we also have some more detailed regulation below to protect more
guidance.
Copyright. And from 2019, Vietnam's government has a new strategies to reform our intellectual property right. That make more try to come visible for the foreign investor to be protected their lawful right on the intellectual properties.
Yes, I know the government got a lot of pressure from Europe enterprise regarding to the intellectual property laws.
Yes, correct.
Do we have more time for the detailed slides?
Okay. Last but not least, the more things the more important set of laws that equal to the law on investment, law on immigration. Since 2020, we have the new amended law on immigration. We have set out, so specified out some kind of new investment visa and business visa. So from when you are investor or the representative of the investor that have investment in company in Vietnam companies from free period Vietnam dong and above, you are granted the visa DT3 with the temporary resident card.
So it means according to the immigration laws, new laws in 2020, that new laws and regulations and detailed guidance for the investor.
Yes, correct.
So that they can get the investment visa in Vietnam.
Yeah. But we know that in the law on immigration 2014, the investment visa only grant to the investor.
Yes.
But in 2020, not only grant to the investor, but also the representative of the investor.
Yeah.
So
it means it's more detailed.
It's more detailed.
Yeah.
For example, we have some investor, it is an organization overseas. So if they're representative of that organization coming to Vietnam and do business,
I see.
we also.
So according to the law in 2014, just investor.
Yes.
It means if you are the investor, no matter how is investment capital, you are entitled to get the investment visa. However, according to the law in 2020, you should show your visa, the investment visa will be along with the investment capital.
Yes.
And the laws also give more detail about on the representative of the entity.
Yes, because the former laws, the old laws, no, did specify whether
the detail
for the organization investors. But in 2020, they give more detail that the representative are also allowed to be granted.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you, Paul. So thank you for your representation on the laws, business law in relation to the investment in Vietnam. So you have presented 7 new laws in Vietnam in relation to business and investment, especially the investment law, labor law, and immigration law, which is related to the foreigner investor. So I think now it's time for Q&A.
Sure.
So thanks, Mr. Hai and Paul, for your time and sharing some information. So I think I just give 2 minutes introduction about the company, and then we will right away from there, the Q&A session. So, just to wrap up, I want to talk about VIVA Business Consulting. We are like a local firm with a local expertise. Our company focusing on the compliance procedure in Vietnam, and we have been operating in Vietnam for more than 15 years. And we have office in Ho Chi Minh City in Hanoi, and we humbly have around 50-60 permanent staff. So our client in portfolio, including clients from countries like Europe, and including businesses, including representative office and local business in Vietnam. Our core business we have divided into 3 segments, which is service for expat, including entry and visa and TAC and how to apply for work permit, and services including for representative office and foreign companies in Vietnam, including setting up, market entry, dissolution, restructuring. So at VIVA, we want to thank you today for taking the time, and we looking forward to looking for new partners, foreign partners to join the journey and join the market Vietnam to the future outlook. And we think that the current short-term hiccups, and we think that there are a lot of uncertainty, and we see a lot of foreign investors that holding that decision-making problem, and they decide to whether to enter Vietnam or not. And we hope today and give you some of the local expertise that you might help you to decide whether it's a good time to enter the market or it's a good time to exit market. With that, I'd like to thank everyone, and right away we can jump to the Q&A session.
Okay, thank you. So I take it from here. I saw already some questions in the chat that were answered on the way, so it's good. Okay, so one question coming right now. Can you tell us more about the minimum capital requirement?
Okay, so let me explain. Yes, actually in Vietnam, by law, there's no official limit in the minimum capital. We have been experienced with some investor, they invest with just $1. However, when you invest in Vietnam, you should explain about your business plan, your project investment. So authority will review your investment in compare with the investment capital. So in case the investment capital is not inconsistent, is not fair enough to the business investment or your actual activity in Vietnam, the officer will have the technical reason to reject your application. And the capital also relates to all the compliance procedure, including the payment capital from overseas to the investment capital in Vietnam. And later on, you withdraw the capital or profits from Vietnam to your home country. So we recommend you to consider and choose the reasonable investment capital.
If I may interrupt, I think the question is about the new law that says that for foreign investors, we need to invest a minimum of $128,000, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, I think
yes.
I think I understood the point where you come from, and I think that's the minimum amount to be eligible for the DC3 investment visa. So we come back at the slide, with the visa type.
I think let me explain. I think there are two points. Number one, by law, there's no limit in investment capital. It means you can invest with $1. However, if you want to get the incentive on the investment, it means if the investor wants to get the investment visa, then his capital should be at least 150,000 US dollar. It means in case his capital less than 3 billion, then his investment visa is only valid for 1 year. And in case his investment capital is up to 50 billion VND, then his investment visa is made valid for 5 years. That's correct.
This is the slide we're talking about.
Correct.
Okay,
so
those are huge amounts.
Yeah, the investment capital is just related to the investment visa only.
Okay. I hope this replies to the question of Mr. and Mrs. Delep. Okay, all clear. Great. The person replied.
Yeah.
Okay, let me jump to another question. Very practical one. How long does it take to complete and to establish a company owned 100% foreign direct investment? How long does the procedure take, I would say, from A to Z?
Yes, the total procedure will take for 2 months. In theory, is 45 working days, including the IRC and ERC. Usually, the IRC will take 30 days, and the ERC will take 10 days. However, in urgent case, we can manage under the special procedure. So we can get the full procedure within 20 days or 30 days only, instead of 2 months.
Okay. Another question, what is the most sufficient business model, branch company or representative office? What would be your advice?
Yes, is it different between the foreign representative office and a limited liability company in Vietnam? The rep office is not allowed to do any profitable activity, but the limited liability company allowed to do the full business activity. So in case you just want to set up a rep office here without sale, without revenue, you can choose the representative office because it's more simple. It's less, not required for investment capital. But in case you want to install the service, you want to provide the service or do the trading activity, you should set up a full company in Vietnam.
Is a representative office able to issue invoices and read invoices?
No, it's not allowed.
exactly. That's one of the big differences.
Yeah.
Can I add on?
Anh nghĩ là ngắn thôi để câu hỏi.
Do you want to add something?
No, it's fine. Yeah.
Yes, actually we have the comparison, the difference, the advantage and disadvantage between the foreign representative office and a limited liability company in Vietnam. We can share to you the comparison. So you
That would be
find
nice.
Yeah, you can find the advantage and disadvantage between the
By
two.
the way, some of the guests today asked if you were okay to share the slides you presented today with the audience. Is it something you are okay with or no?
Yes, we are happy to share the slides today. So we hope you can find something useful for your business in Vietnam.
So then we will maybe wait for the second document you just mentioned, the comparison between the two different kind of companies, and we will send all together to the different guests today after the event.
Yes. The comparison is ready, so we can send both today.
Okay, great. I have another question. You mentioned that an investor married to a Vietnamese citizen is exempted of work permit. Does that mean he's also he or she is also exempted of resident card?
Yes. In case of post, so he can be exempted from the work permit and allowed to get the resident card. He not exempt from the resident card. However, he can apply for the resident card. Usually it valid for 5 years.
Okay. This is valid for foreign citizens married to Vietnamese citizens, right?
Yes, correct.
Is this also valid for descendants or ascendants of Vietnamese citizens?
Can you elaborate that? Like, what's the exact situation? Yeah.
Sure. Foreigner married to Vietnamese citizen, but what about daughter the kids of a Vietnamese citizens? Yes, kids or parents, descendants or ascendants.
Yes, by law, in case of relative, he or she allowed to get the same resident from the sponsor. For example, in case the parent can have the resident valid for 5 years, then he can apply the same resident card for his relative.
Okay, I'm not sure this is the question, but okay. So I have another question. Can the investors establish the company and contribute in its capital, from overseas, or do they need to be in Vietnam?
Yes, the investor can contribute the capital from overseas account or from the local account.
Oh, both. Okay.
Yeah, both.
But I think the bank is asking the origin of the funds, right?
Yes, the fund should be from the investor account.
Yes, they require that the overseas account that is sending the money to the Vietnamese account is at the same name.
Yes, and one thing is very important. Some investor, instead of pay up the capital into the capital account, they pay to the payment account. Then it creates a lot of risky thing in the future, because the foreigner investor should contribute the capital into the separate investment account, which is managed by the State Bank of Vietnam. They cannot pay the capital into the payment account.
Understand. We have a question that just came now about buying house in Vietnam. Foreign citizens who marry Vietnamese ones, do they allow to buy a house with their own name?
Yeah, so under the property law 2016 that going effective by the end of 2016, foreigner can own and sell sublease property in Vietnam as Vietnamese. However, the term of the ownership is limit up to 50-70 years, depending on what the duration land of that land of the Vietnamese government and the developer. However, if you have Vietnamese wife or relatives that want to purchase house in here, so you can when you purchase that under name, you can, But when you enter buying property in Vietnam, you will enter SPA, sales and purchase agreement, with the developer usually, and foreigner can only purchase property within a project, and a certain quotation to that project is sold to foreigner. However, when you pay up all the installment for the property and you receive the handover that property, you'll be issued a red book or a pink book. The pink book is basically the certificate of ownership proving that you own that property in Vietnam. And then there's two options: either under your name. If it's under your name, it's got under foreign name, it's for 50 years. But if it's under Vietnamese name, it's going to be no duration. So I think that's the basic answer to that. I think like if Mr. Pong or Mr. Hai want to add on that, but I hope that answers to your question.
So it means the foreigner can own the property in Vietnam under his name.
Yes, but the principles here is that by law the foreign investor can own the apartment in a commercial project, and he or she must buy directly from the investor of that project.
Yes.
Or they receive the transfer from other foreigners.
Yeah, I see. So I would like to say the two experience is very important. Number one, the foreigner only allowed to buy the apartment in the commercial area. They cannot buy house in resident like Vietnamese.
So they can buy up to 30% of apartment in that project, and not more than 250 if there's like two types: apartment and townhouse or villas.
Yes.
Right. So they can buy not up to 250.
First in commercial area,
yes.
And the second is limit in the percentage
by
for foreigner.
Yes.
And the second experience is you should buy directly from the developer.
Yes.
You cannot buy from the local distributor.
Yeah.
You can buy back from another foreigner.
Yes.
It means the foreigner only allowed to buy the property from the developer directly, or from the other foreigner. Cannot buy from the Vietnamese.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, well, so many questions. I would need to sort them. Question from a representative office: when our expert come to Vietnam for 1 month to work on a specific project that we got, does the representative office need to register his or her PIT or fulfill any other procedures?
Yes, it's depending. In case he or she work in Vietnam and he earns some incomes in Vietnam, according to the local laws, he or she have to pay personal income tax, and the personal income tax will depend on her residence status. In case she or he resident in Vietnam, he or she have to pay the tax on the progressive rate from 5 to 35%, depending on the level of income. And in case he or she non-resident in Vietnam, he or she just pay 20% for the income that they earn in Vietnam.
Okay.
So, the expert come to work for the rep office within 1 month. I think she is non-resident. So in this case, if the rep office pays salary to her, the rep office shall deduct at least 20% for any income before paying to her.
Before delivering the salary. Okay, I have another question. Someone asked to come back to the question you just replied before. If you come back to this, being careful to send the capital amount on the right separate account. What did you mean by right account? It was capital and current account.
Yes, let me answer.
Yeah.
The right account is correct. The direct investment capital account that is open in a commercial bank in Vietnam, and the objects that allow to open that capital account is the foreign invested in the companies. It means that if you are open a company in Vietnam, that company needs to open a direct investment capital account, and the cash flow from the overseas country of the investor will be transferred into that direct investment capital accounts from overseas or from Vietnam as well?
Yes, Paul, let me explain. You know, as you are a foreign investor, you should open a separate investment account. This investment account is only allowed to receive the capital from the investor, and later on it will receive the profits from Vietnam and transfer to his home country. It's separate from the payment account. So as the foreign investor, after the establishment procedure, you should open the direct investment bank account in Vietnam. And you only allowed to pay the capital into this account.
Yes, if I may just add a word. What you mentioned before is that the investor should be careful to give the right bank account to his or her bank there in his or her home country to make sure the money is transferred to the capital account. This is what you meant when you said to the right account, because when an investor opens a company here in Vietnam, there are two bank accounts. There is the capital account and the current account, I would say. Payment account, which is current account, the one to make operations and pay and receive payments.
Yes.
If the capital is sent from abroad to this current account, then it's a big problem. Because the capital account serves only for the capital.
Exactly.
It's something that is very, very specific to Vietnam. It's not the case in European countries, for example. So this is why it's a bit confusing for some of us.
Yes, we have many clients who pay the capital into the current account, and later on they cannot withdraw the profit to their home country.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I see we are almost at the limit of our webinar. Let me take maybe one or two last questions. Give me a second. We already replied to a similar question. Can we use, well, this is also to clarify this question. Can we use the charter capital to pay for the operating expenditure? Can we withdraw the capital after a certain time operating and has generated enough revenue for the company to sustain itself?
Yes, by law, you should pay the capital within 90 days from the day of business license. And once you pay the capital into the investment account, and from the investment account, you can transfer immediately to the current account. And you can use the capital in the current account to pay for the business investment and daily operation.
Another point, because I saw that around myself with different investors, the rule of the 90 days to transfer the capital to the capital account is absolutely mandatory. If only one day exceeds, and then you run into big troubles. I mean, nobody goes to jail, but it's a lot of paperwork and a lot of burden.
Yes, you can transfer from the capital to the current account in the same day.
Exactly.
It means your investment will not be blocked for any further day.
Absolutely. Well, I see we are almost at the end of this session. I think all the guests today can contact you, of course, directly if they have more questions and more doubts they want to clarify. We will send them all the presentation you did today. Would you like Mr. Hai, Mr. Paul, Mr. Tim to add something else before we wrap up this session today? It's been already an hour and a half.
Yes, we hope our presentation today is useful for the members of EuroCham, and we're preparing to send the slides and also the comparison between the rep office and a company in Vietnam. So if you need further info or you have more query or question, please send it to us. So our team will prepare and send it to you as soon as possible.
Thank you so much. I would like to invite everybody to follow our events on our social media, EuroCham LinkedIn page, EuroCham Facebook page, and our website as well, because we have many webinars as interesting as this one today. So please stay tuned. We have another webinar coming next week on the 13th about the new law on sexual harassment in working. So it's also something you should attend as employers. Thank you so much, Mr. Hai, again, Paul and Tim. Thank you so much for your contribution today. Very nice to listen to you. And I know we had more questions to answer to, but we ran out of time. Thanks again, and hope to collaborate again with you in the very near future. Thank you, everybody, for attending today. Stay safe and stay positive. Have a good day.
Have a good day.
Yes. Yes. Thank you, Mr. Rafi. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Yeah. Have a good day.
Mr. Hai, Paul, and Tim, can I keep you here just 1 minute with me?
Yes, of course.
While people leave the webinar, we just give them a minute or two to leave the webinar. I just have one more question for you.
Yes.
We had so many guests today.
Oh.
Up to 120 guests, and even after a